We're going.
He did it.
Apologies for the rough start. All right, meeting is called to order, 6:30. We have two counselors who are not present, although Tim told us he wasn't going to be here. Tracy is AWOL.
She'll be here.
Tracy was, did you see Tracy at the co-op?
Nope.
Oh, well, I don't know where she is then. All right, now is the time. Open forum. Does anybody want to say anything for the part of the open forum? You guys are all on the agenda, so probably not. Okay, open forum is closed. Moving right on to the consent agenda. Typical 3 things on the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything they want to discuss, or is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion, is there a second?
I would second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. All right, moving right along. One Roof, EDA housing project. You guys have 2 microphones up here that you need to talk to in order to talk to us. If you don't talk to the microphone, we don't hear you. Want me to pass this out? All right. So, we had a little meeting yesterday. Talked about some of this, the details.
Correct.
Wondering what you guys want to talk about today and what we can do to help you.
Mr. Mayor, Council, how formal are you?
Not formal.
Not formal?
Not
Thank you for those, that, I guess everybody was there, attending the meeting yesterday. We had, I thought, a pretty good round discussion. Got a little long, but I thought everybody was heard and we got a lot of input. We have subsequently talked to Cliff Knettle from One Roof. He had written a letter requesting support for the housing project that we have on the books for Grand Marais, which is, do I recap that for the record, or?
You can if you want. I think it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to at least
We've,
give
the EDA, other community, chamber, a lot of folks in the community, when I say community, Cook County, have been studying the issue of growth, what's holding us back, what could make this a better place to live and be. The biggest concern that came back from all the surveys was housing. And this cuts across all sectors. I represent timber business, sawmills, recreation, city, county, and state and federal government through the border people. The biggest barrier to growing our business and economic improvement is getting people here and having houses for them. So we determined that if we're going to have any, I mean, this then becomes a very big economic development issue, having housing. So we put this as a top priority. We've been working at this with various committees of dedicated people, hardworking, all volunteer. Had some help from a consultant. Scott Harrison was instrumental in going out and getting grant monies, and we raised about 70 grand or something like that. Hired Randy Lasky from Northspan to kind of head up a lot of community work. Lots of background, that all culminated in looking at what kinds of housing attributes, where we could have housing. Looked at, Anton, I think 100 parcels of land that could be for sale, either government, private. Looked at all the attributes of those lands, wetlands, access, slopes, all kinds of things, and kind of narrowed that down. And in Grand Marais, we identified a property. One Roof has got a purchase agreement. It's I don't even know what you guys know what block it is, but
to the west of Homestead.
yeah, to the west of Homestead. So we're working on perfecting. We kind of we've chosen One Roof out of Duluth as a developer, so that we're kind of their public agent, in Grand Marais, and their promoter. But they have a purchase agreement on the property. They have been out and this is a business that they're in. They do housing, they do, in this case, it's workforce housing, which it's not low-income housing, it's workforce, and there's a couple of target 85% of the mean.
80 and 150.
Yeah.
80 to 115, right?
Yep. Yeah, 80 and 115. So it's in a kind of normal living wage kind of area. The houses that we're looking at, we'll have a sale price of between $140,000 and $200,000. The reason that it will be in that range is because there's quite a bit of grant money and other things that they have pulled together to make this happen. It's a land trust model where the developer, in this case One Roof, will retain the ownership of the land and sell the house to a prospective house owner. In that way, that will also retain some control of the cost. As people buy these houses, they'll buy them at an affordable rate because they're somewhat subsidized from the grant money and all the incentives that come in. If they turn around and sell that in a few years, they'll get the normal appreciation that you would have. They would get any investments if they make improvements in the house, but they can't go flip it for double. In a tourist area like Grand Marais, then that's what happens. You can if you got a house for $200,000, somebody from outside the area, a big city, wants to retire here, and they come in and buy it for $400,000. Now you don't have affordable house anymore. With this model, it stays, we hope, affordable. One of the things that they wrote a letter to the city for was a commitment for about up to $25,000 per house. In this case, there's 7 houses, $175,000. We talked a good deal about this yesterday. It's not just a Grand Marais thing; it's a Cook County thing. So we haven't identified the exact sources of funds, but we did draft up a letter, which is in front of you. One Roof would be happy with this kind of commitment.
So this is something that Cliff has seen,
Correct.
and he's okay with this.
It is. And because he's going out for grant monies, the grantors, like to see a little local skin in the game. So we can't just go ask for all the money to build these houses and then just step back and say, gee, we can't throw any money into this pot. So we in the EDA think it's reasonable. We've identified yesterday several possible sources to develop this. So I ask your consideration on this.
So we did a lot talking about this yesterday, and I guess the big question for the council is whether or not you guys feel comfortable with me signing this as a representative of the city for the $175,000. So if you feel so, then I don't know, I guess we could make a motion on it, or else you just tell me to sign it. I think probably a motion would be cleaner, but there's more discussion.
I'd make the motion in support of the city of Grand Marais supports at least a portion of this $175,000 ask in the local match, as we discussed yesterday at our joint meeting. And I think it's exciting that it's moving forward, and we've got. I mean, yesterday I think was a positive meeting to have everybody say yeah. So that's my motion.
Okay, so there's a motion. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Oh. I was just waiting who was going to go there. Okay, Dave
Okay,
wins.
so motion and a second. Any further discussion on this motion? I personally
Oh,
am
you
really
do.
excited. Okay,
Just
good.
really quick, did you have a chance to?
I sent Cliff an email. I
You didn't hear back?
haven't heard back from him yet.
Okay. I did have one question. Maybe you already knew this or not.
Yes.
And that was just in consideration of what's going on in the construction world right now. Are your costs baked in with the thought that sometimes it's a premium to bring people up here, a premium to get people to do the work right now. And do they feel good about their numbers with that in mind? You know, it's zero construction unemployment right now, right? And as we know in other building projects in this community, oftentimes if you're bringing them outside, it costs more money, and it might be hard to get somebody up here right now, or local people, and you know, everyone's busy.
Right.
So that's my only wonderment.
And Cliff did reply at the end of the day, and I'm sorry I didn't bring that with me. I should have printed it off and brought it in for you, but,
I'm looking at,
oh, you're on there, yeah.
yeah.
I can just forward it around to everybody
Yeah.
tomorrow morning.
Okay.
So that's like a bigger,
He
not
said
meant
that,
to stop anything we were thinking of today, but that was
It's a
only
good clarification to have, to understand that the numbers were responsibly sourced
Yeah.
and realistically include expenses that you can probably expect to have here.
Yeah, and he has, it's more than I want to read right now, but they do see that in Duluth as well. And in one example, they got bids that were above their estimate. They reissued to a broader group, and they came in less than the original bid. So they're
So
they're
they
pretty,
have flexibility in
they're-
bidding, rebidding.
Yeah, they're innovative, right?
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any closing comments? Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
I'll sign this and then,
Well, there's a clean
this is
So
the
that's the
clean
clean
copy.
copy?
Would you mind signing it right now, Mayor?
oh, I suppose.
Thanks for your work, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you, Howard.
Well,
Bring
it's,
a pen.
it's
I would do
good.
everything
Yeah,
electronically
it
these days.
doesn't work.
I've got a red one.
Well, thank you still.
It's the bigger one.
I'm not gonna thank him.
I got purple and green too.
Thanks, Howard.
Thank you, Howard.
Do you want me to date it or?
7/27.
Oh, I know what date it is.
You do.
12:31.
12/31/16? Yeah, I don't think that would work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
All right, super. So that one, moving right along, we have the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. We've got Bradley Peterson here. He's from Flaherty and Hood, so he knows the guy on the other side of the phone. And he's brought us some information. He's going to give us an update of what the Coalition for Greater Minnesota Cities has been doing, and will be available for any questions that we have pertaining to what's happening at the state level, etc.
Thicker than last year.
Well, a lot less happened, so we got to talk about it. Good evening, everyone. Thanks again for having me up. My name is Bradley Peterson, an attorney and lobbyist with Flaherty and Hood. And as you know, we do the legislative advocacy and the organizational management for the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, and have for many, many, many years. The coalition currently has 88 members, which is the highest number of members that we've ever had, so that's good. And so here to talk a little bit about what happened at the legislature and answer whatever questions that you've got. You know, I think big picture, we know that not much happened at the legislature this year. They had a $900 million surplus. They had a tax bill to finish from last year that they did not finish. They had a bonding bill to take up, and an ongoing conversation about transportation that is now in year 4, at least, in terms of the most serious rounds of recent discussions. Our priorities this year were a couple. First off, as it relates to the tax bill, local government aid, getting back to the 2002 level by adding $45.5 million to that appropriation. And I'll talk about that a little bit more here in a minute. There were some other items in the tax bill in terms of property tax relief from the state's commercial industrial property tax levy on the first $100,000 worth of value that we worked on. It does not impact anything the city's tax base. It's the state imposed commercial industrial property tax. Bonding bill. 2 items that we worked particularly on this year were the clean water infrastructure grant and loan programs. There's 3 of them. The one that most of our cities use is the Point Source Implementation Grant Program, and then the Greater Minnesota Business Development Public Infrastructure Grant Program, which helps pay the public, or the costs of public infrastructure related to business development. And I've talked about all of these in the past when I've been here. So, like I said, it was a short legislative session. It started March 8th. They had 10 weeks to get some stuff done. And again, you know, there was no tax bill in 2015. Bonding bill needed to be done, transportation. So on the tax bill, on local government aid, End of the day, after lots of wrangling, they did put in a $20 million increase. Now, as you guys know, this means very little to you, since you are a community who is local aid is receding over time. And that is due, as I think we've discussed in the past, in large part to your relatively strong tax base. Of the 763 cities that receive local government aid, some portion, even just a little bit, Grand Marais has the 19th strongest tax base per capita of those 763 cities. You guys, on a per capita basis, have a stronger tax base than Minneapolis, to sort of put that into context for you. And that is really what drives the receding of local government aid for you. We are, though, looking at, because there's a couple of communities that are similarly situated that are smaller cities in the coalition. Bilovic comes to mind as another one, who likewise are sort of on a downward trend in terms of local government aid. And so our policy analyst here in the interim is doing some work and some research to try to figure out, is there a way, at least for you guys, that we can sort of stop the bleeding and kind of level that out a little bit. And just driving up here, actually, on the phone, had some conversation with him and sort of talking through some things. And there's another guy that we work with, who we contract with, and they've been in discussion. And there's an angle that we're looking at that needs a little bit of refinement and work, but it's something that we are working on and looking at. And
Is it called local option sales tax?
local option sales tax. Have you talked to Senator Block yet, like I urged you to last year?
I know.
Okay. The local option sales tax, that certainly would be an option. I mean, I know you guys have your Cook County tax that gets collected. Other communities look at it. Typically, it's something that's used for specific projects, infrastructure projects. There is not, to my knowledge, a local option sales tax that is imposed for operations. And so, that certainly, if you had projects in mind or capital
we do.
things that
We
you
do.
needed, that would be the way to go then. But again, it's something that, in order to move through, you need a couple of things. First, very strong support from your local legislators. Strong community support, including from the business community. Because the worst thing that can happen is for you guys to go to the legislature and say, we'd like a local option sales tax, or we'd like a enhanced authority to impose a food and beverage or lodging tax. And the Chamber of Commerce come up right after you and say, hell no, we are absolutely against that. You will be dead in the water. And so I know there are a lot of communities that are actually looking at putting something on the ballot in November in anticipation of going to the legislature in January related to a local option sales tax. That is one of the requirements of the process. And so things need to be certified to the county by early August, I think, so you probably wouldn't have an opportunity for this year. But if you do start to look at something like that, I mean, what I would strongly urge you to do, based on the experience of other communities, is put together a community group to talk about what projects you may want to do and have a process that
Like
looks
comp
good.
planning, maybe? Like maybe working into a comp plan?
That could be. I mean, it would be based on that.
Look at that.
Well,
I mean, that would certainly be an opportunity to start that discussion. Other communities have actually set up separate citizen task forces and done that. But I think, as you're going through, and as I understand you're going to be going through here, a pretty significant comp planning process over the next 2 years, that would be a place to have that discussion, or at least a way for you to identify the needs that then you could say, well, this might be a good candidate to be paid for with a local option sales tax.
sure.
So on the other tax bill item that I want to draw your attention to is the CI tax.
Commercial industrial tax?
Yeah, that the state levies. And if you flip over the first insert here, on the bottom you can see we did a little bit of analysis just as what it would look like for different valued properties here in Grand Marais. And the full 100K, the exemption ends up being about a $730 savings. And so, certainly for many businesses, and especially in Greater Minnesota, it tends to be could be a significant piece of property tax relief. Again, this is hung up in the tax bill that did not pass, or that was not completed. It passed both houses of the legislature, but there was a $100 million drafting error that was discovered about a week afterwards that would have cost the state a big chunk of money over 3 years, and so the governor was forced to exercise a pocket veto on that. And so that's one of the items that we're hopeful that if there is a special session here in August or early September,
Could bring that back up.
that would be part of it. The bonding bill suffered a likewise disappointing fate at the legislature. We had pushed hard last year on some issues around environmental regulation and some of the mandates that are being placed on cities, and raised a big ruckus, was able to pass some things through the legislature that ultimately were vetoed by the governor. But the outcome of that was, I think, a realization on the part of the administration that if there are going to be these mandates in terms of water and wastewater infrastructure, then somehow there needs to be more resources to pay for it. And so the governor, in his recommendations to the legislature, came up with $167 million of grant loan programs for cities to take advantage of. These were embraced by the legislature, and we did quite a bit of time, spent quite a bit of time lobbying them and did some media around them. The mayor of Albert Lee wrote an editorial that was in the Star Tribune and several other papers across the state, lauding the importance of these programs and thanking the governor for his support. The Senate, when they passed their tax bill, although they didn't pass their tax bill, when they brought their tax bill up, that failed by one vote, they had $167 million for these programs, and then the House had $146 million. Their bill also passed when they brought it up for the first time on the floor. So at the very, very end of session, you had a bill that came up in the House, literally in the last 40 minutes, where they're scrambling around trying to put together a $990 million bonding bill, which is not a lot of time to spend that kind of money. There was $133.5 million for these clean water programs in there. We were very gratified that the legislature really embraced these. But at the very, very end, the last 6 minutes, dispute over Southwest Light Rail Transit shipwrecked the whole thing, and there was no bonding bill. The other item related to these programs that I think will be helpful for communities in the long run is the state participation was up to 50%, capped at $3 million for these projects. We were able to push to get the state participation up to 80% and $7 million. So there is going to be more state resources available for these projects because they're hugely expensive. I've been traveling on the Iron Range the last couple of days, and they've been talking a lot about mercury and the mandates that they're going to be needing to meet and the work that they're going to be doing in the next couple of years. So they really are sweating out this bonding bill thing. The difference that moving those caps and having this money available makes is absolutely huge to communities across the state. So that's something that we're going to be continuing to push on in terms of a special session. The other bonding bill item that I'll note is the Greater Minnesota Greater Minnesota Business Development Public Infrastructure Grant Program, BDPI. This program helps fund the public infrastructure related to business development. It's been used by communities across the state. It's been very successful. The governor put in $21 million in his recommendations to this program, which is more than has ever been recommended by a governor. The final bonding bill, the one that did not pass, had $12 million in it, which is still pretty good. Again, more than they've ever passed in one shot at a time. We were able to pass some language that would make this more usable for communities. So two things. There had been a $1 million cap on communities on a 2-year basis in terms of what they could get. We raised that up to $2 million. The other item was that you really, in order to apply to deed for these projects, had to have a project that was signed, sealed, delivered, ready to go. And so there was kind of this chicken and an egg issue of, well, is the infrastructure, how are we going to pay for it, in order to get these guys? Now, the way the statute reads is that if there is a project that is expected, you can apply to deed and be eligible for the money. So it gives you a little bit more of a, you don't have to have a 100% commitment, you've got to have maybe a 60 or 70% type of commitment from a project.
So a question about that.
Yeah.
When you say infrastructure for this grant program, are you talking about specifically new construction, septic, freshwater, electric,
sewer connection,
utility
electric,
stuff?
Utilities. Folks have used it for streets and that sort of thing. Curb and gutter, those types of things. The definition of infrastructure, I think, in that is pretty broad.
What's the definition of business development?
It's generally got to be a private business.
Okay.
And so it hasn't necessarily been, the idea is job creation. It hasn't necessarily been, although these are still jobs, obviously, been
Yeah.
applied to like nonprofits or that sort of thing. And that's been one of the things that I think, we've kind of dabbled at looking at over the years, but it's been, more your traditional for-profit type of business.
I only say that in like on the coattails of when the EDA was just here talking about
Right.
how.
Yeah, and that's one thing too that and I'm glad you brought that up because we have had discussions about trying to extend that to housing.
Yeah. Because
Or-
that's the big thing that's
Yeah.
holding back business development up
Yeah.
here in a lot of ways is
Yeah.
people like good, it's not affordable. I mean, not
Right.
big A affordable housing, right? It's
Yeah.
little a affordable housing for people that are trying to transplant and move up here, or people are trying to stay, which makes businesses, teachers, nurses, federal positions, county positions, like they can't do it because they can't find a place to live, which.
Yeah, and that we have had that discussion about either trying to see if we could sort of shoehorn housing into this existing program or create a whole kind of parallel program that would help with the infrastructure
For
side
housing.
of that, sort of thing.
Well, considering how much playtime housing is getting in greater Minnesota,
Mhm.
rural Minnesota, whatever you want. I mean, like there's tons of different ways to outstop state Minnesota, whatever. It's it seems like that would make sense. I mean, that money would be. There'd be so many communities that would be so happy to have that money to help allow for that because you gotta think that some of these new developments in some of these communities are being held back by the fact that the developers can't or aren't willing to pay the several $100,000 it would cost to extend the curb and gutter,
Right.
Or that sort of thing.
So, not real positive on the outcome side.
Mhm.
If they come back in August, right? Is everything on the table, or are they going to maybe just look at like the bonding bill, or are they going to just look at the tax bill, or what do you? I mean,
I think my hunch, if I had to guess, I would say the tax bill pretty much largely as it passed out of the legislature, minus the errors and probably some other things.
okay.
A bonding bill, again, I think largely as it was passed out. Now, the problem is, there's all this discussion about 2 weeks ago that there was an agreement between the governor and the legislative leaders that we're going to have a special session in the third week of August. The problem is they haven't necessarily agreed to some of the specifics that were the stumbling points in May. And unless one side or the other caves pretty significantly, it's hard to see how we actually have a special session in August. I'm saying right now, there's a 50% chance. 3 weeks ago, though, I would have said there was a 20% chance.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I'm saying there's a chance, but here's the thing: is if it doesn't happen, really by the second week in September, you're waiting until January.
Yep.
So that's kind of the big ticket items. Transportation continues to be a muddle. CGMC is really focused on two pieces of that: the Quarters of Commerce program, and then city streets. And with the goal of making that small city street program that they paid $12.5 million out to cities last year, making that permanent and doubling it. We're shooting for $25 million ongoing. There was some money in the bonding bill on a one-time basis for city streets, but of course that sunk with everything else. My guess, though, is that the transportation items that were in the bonding bill are probably the most at risk of not going forward in a special session. With that, the only other thing I draw your attention to in the packet is some save the dates for some
I saw that.
some of our upcoming events. I know it's a long haul from here to St. Paul or here to Fergus Falls, but you are always welcome, of course.
So for example, I mean, just curious.
Yeah.
So summer conference in Fergus Falls. What could we look forward to happening at Fergus Falls? What would be worth the drive?
Sure. Well, let me tell you about the summer conference we just had in Austin. So that was last week, and we had kind of a debrief on the legislative session where I did a sort of somewhat tongue-in-cheek but sadly very serious investigation of, quote, who killed the bonding bill, and sort of did a step-by-step timeline of how the bonding bill went down. We had some tours of the city and some of the things that the city of Austin had to offer.
Spam museum.
We went to the Spam Museum. Some folks went and toured their flood wall and their wastewater treatment facility. Some of the arts things that they have down there. I was surprised to learn that Austin itself has a thriving arts community.
Austin city limits.
Yeah,
Oh, wait.
yeah. We
Don't put him in
had
the car.
a pretty extensive discussion on some of these environment and water and wastewater issues, including presentations from some consultants. The MPCA community liaison, Joel Peck, was there, spoke to our group for a while. Some folks on our staff did a presentation on kind of know your rights as you're being permitted for things. What are some things that you should watch out for? We had a panel on transportation where we had the Senate Transportation Chair, Republican Senator from the suburbs, the Vice Chair from the House, and a minority member from the House, as well as the State Chamber of Commerce. So we had an hour presentation from them. We had our business meeting where we elected the new leadership for the coalition and did some other things like that. And then I got a tour of the Hormel Institute, which is a world-class cancer research facility right in the middle of the prairie. It was absolutely fascinating. So that's the kind of things that we did in Austin, and I think Fergus Falls is pretty motivated to match them.
They gonna put us at Kirkbride or something like that?
Well, they'd have to do quite a bit of fixing it up first, I think. But that would be, for instance, of one of the types of things. The Kirkbride, if you don't know, is this old state hospital that is this gorgeous, beautiful campus that has been in disrepair and disuse now for probably 40 years. And so the city is struggling with, we've got this great asset here in terms of this building. How can we use it and turn it into something fabulous? Obviously, any of these events, we'd love to have you.
Cool.
Any other questions that I can help you with?
Anybody?
All right.
Awesome. Thanks for coming.
Appreciate your
Really
time
appreciate it.
and appreciate your support.
Amazing work.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Thanks. Awesome. Do we need to close that window? Is that window too loud? Okay.
Should we put a microphone by it?
All right, so we're moving right along. Public Works facility update. Mike and I had a little bit of a question and answer period before what do we have to talk about this, but I think that largely it boils down to, are we interested in general contracting, or are we interested in construction management for a project, for the Public Works project? And we were unable to line up direct people to interview about this from the county and the hospital. But it seems like the hospital feels, that's a very gentle way of putting it, but it seems like the hospital really, going with the construction manager is pretty much the only option that they would say that they've used and that they're very satisfied with it. And that's what the county did in the past too. So obviously there's a lot of concerns about both options, but I don't know if you guys have a strong feeling about either one.
You do.
You do. She does.
But then I'd like to hear what the concerns are of that. So if I said anything, I'd like to hear what everyone else thought about why they should be cautious to.
Well, the reason that I think about it, and the reason I said that was largely because of the pros and cons that we got in that Krause-Anderson packet, at the last meeting, where, the concerns of going with a construction manager is that, we're paying for the guarantee that it's going to cost a certain amount of money. And then we know that it's going to cost that money, which is great. But if it gets done for under that money, then we're still on the hook for that money. Whereas general contracting is the other way, where if it gets done under budget, then hooray for us. But if it gets done over budget, then we're paying that money. So that's a very rudimentary summary of the breakdown. But
Seems like you just need to hire the right general contractor. Right?
In a project this size, I think a great general contractor is still going to end up
right.
running into things that
Oh,
aren't
absolutely.
anticipated.
Do you want me to chime in on what I think of that? Or do
You
want
probably
to say
should.
yours, what you want to say?
Well, I'll just first of all say I would have gone for the manager, and I get the big picture risk, and I think that is the essence of it. And are we, what do we want to risk? What is the chance of us actually saving some money versus getting caught off on it the other direction when we actually make someone there who actually sits and watches what gets done? So for a variety of reasons, that would have been my first pick. But yeah, I'd like to hear what you and other people think, maybe why you would or wouldn't want to go that route.
Well, I guess the only thing, it seems to me that like especially with like a larger company that has done this before, and that's the only type of company that we're going to work with to do this, if we go with the project management side of it, where it's an actual full bid, like set cost, well then, I'm not sure that it is an actual set cost, because I'm sure there'll be contingencies and exclusions within that, and then sometimes, especially in a bid project, the exclusions list is sometimes as long as the scope of work, right? Maybe not quite, but it's quite, if they've got their bases covered to make sure that they're not going to be stuck high and dry,
Right.
they're going to make sure to have that, whatever those exclusions may be. And so that's, whereas if we work with more of the general contracting side of it, with, I don't know, and I don't know who that it would be. I really don't know what that means in a project like this. But but the side of it on knowing that they have the best interest of the city in mind, because they should, and that they will, when things arise, right? It's going to cost X, but we're going to do, 15% of X into that cost to have set aside 20% if we want to just feel even better, more set aside. So like, here's what we think our top end is going to be. And then we have the possibility of being able to come in under that, or we already have ourselves prepared for like some hiccup, whatever. We got to blast 7 feet down for utilities for 350 feet, right? Like there goes some money pretty fast. But maybe it's all beach gravel, and then we don't have to do it, right? So and then we're ahead of the game. I don't know, and I don't know how that. I guess I don't know the difference on how they, how the proposals would go out to a project management, the more solid bid versus the general contracting. Like if we could actually, it'd be fantastic to be able to look at both of them side by side, and even though there probably would be different numbers, to try and actually look at like how those. But that's a lot of ask to somebody that might not get it too. So I don't know. That's my immediate kind of feelings.
I think you did a pretty good job of summarizing a lot of what gives me reason to pause on considering this. Like what you said is, when you get the bids, if you bid this out for a general contractor or something like that, the numbers are going to come in with a range, right? So we're going to know, they're going to give us like this to this. Like that's kind of what to expect. This being the high end, this being the low end. And, and or what each part of it is going to potentially cost. But then, I don't know. It just seems to me like if we go with a construction manager, we have more guarantees about what the overall expense is going to be. But then with that guarantee comes the cost of pretty much what the expense is going to be. I totally see what you're saying with the general contractor. Like if we go with the general contractor, like we have that ability to try and keep the cost down a little bit more directly.
Well, and I don't know if we, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know what it comes out to in the end, like what that difference is, dollars to dollars.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if it's not that $50,000 isn't a lot of money, right? But I don't know if it comes down to that or if it's several $100,000. I don't think the spread. You can't know that. And again, I think that anybody that's going to bid a project like this also knows that they're going to have, like I said, those exclusions, those
Right.
contingencies in place for X. Or if they don't, and they've already factored those things in, like let's just assume we're going to have to blast a quarter mile, 7 feet deep to get everything in there. Well, I don't know. Then that stinks for the city to be paying for that when it didn't take them a month and a half to do it. It took them a week and a half.
Right.
And you know,
Well, consider the projects that have happened locally recently,
yeah.
and whether or not any of them ever had an opportunity to come in below bid or below expectation. I think it's pretty rare that you're going to have a project this complex that you're not going to end up with some unanticipated costs. So if we're not sure which way to go, I wouldn't put a lot of value on the idea that we're going to be able to save some money by going one way or the other, because I just don't think that's likely to happen. When we were talking about this last meeting, the idea was we'll spend some time going over the pros and cons with some assistance from people that might be able to help us. I just don't think there's a lot of information out there that can help you guide this decision. So where that leads me to go is, well, let's not worry about it so much and let's just pick one and go forward, because we know they both work.
Sure.
And we know they're both acceptable. And if we have any guidance at all on what to pick, Cross Anderson says construction manager at risk is much more standard these days. The hospital says our construction attorneys recommended doing this. LHB says, yeah, it probably makes sense to do that on this project. And none of those things really give us the reasons why, the pros and cons, the which risk are we accepting versus not. But I don't think we're going to get that kind of information. So my recommendation is let's pick one and move forward.
The
And
thing,
I feel, and Dave, do you have anything you want to say? About it? Because if you do, you should go ahead and say it.
I have nothing strongly to say. I would lean to the management side of things. Just from the input I've heard, kind of offhand at the hospital as well as with the school, my concern would be the construction management that happened with the Y and the library, right? With those kind of, so it really comes down to who
does it?
versus which model you're going with, and so. But it seems like construction management is safer.
I'm not so worried about the money part. I mean, not that I'm not, but I just feel the management of the project would be, I'd err more to that side, that it'd be a better run and easier for us to not have to be thinking about it as much. Not to say we're not, but I'm more concerned about going over than what we can save, because we already know the bulk of the money we're going to spend. So now that we're going to see some, 3/4% save, some huge savings, but we should certainly keep our risk down for overspending. I think we'd have a better chance of that happening, but
there's a greater chance of overspending than otherwise. I would agree with that. I think that's fair, and I think that the construction manager at risk is, I think that protects the city a little bit better. But I also, in response to what you're saying about like having all the exclusions and just having that potential bid from a construction manager at risk coming in at this enormous number, assuming that they're going to have to do everything the hard way and it's going to cost them $1 bajillion, we also don't have to accept a bid like that. So like we can either ask them to rebid, or we can move on to some other.
And why do we have to pick one or the other? Why couldn't we ask for a construction manager bid as well as a general bid?
Well, we can, but it's going to cost a lot of money to go that direction. I mean, we have to pay to go through the process.
Yeah.
So we need professional assistance to do that.
A lot, like.
I would say yes. Tens of thousands.
Okay.
And I don't know that. I mean, you could do it twice the same way and get different numbers.
Right.
So are you really going to get a good comparison side
Right.
by side to go two different processes?
Right.
It's hard to say. I don't
Yep.
think it's worth the investment.
Yeah.
That there are some good questions about this construction management risk that maybe we don't have answers for yet. If we're interested in this, what Mike Fisher's offered to do is, and he's actually already kind of started this, is go out and collect a few example requests for us to look at, so we kind of understand what we're asking for, what sort of response we should expect to get. Maybe that'll help with some of the things you're talking about, Anton, about how much of this is actually still going to be floating around in there, or how much is baked in and we can't figure it out. I've got to think that there are ways to deal with those questions.
Yeah, I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
It's beyond my scope, right?
No, I think it's beyond all of our scopes. I mean, none of us have built a building like this before. So
I built a couple like these.
The chicken, your chicken coop?
Different life.
At the pyramid. Anyway,
Lego Central.
so if people, yeah, there you go. If people, I mean, do we feel comfortable like passing a motion on this? I feel like I would be comfortable making a motion to proceed with the construction manager at risk model. I feel comfortable doing that. I'm not necessarily making that motion right now, but I'm kind of
Oh, you should just go ahead and make it.
okay. I'll make the motion.
There you go.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and a second. Final discussion. Anton, talk me out of it.
What do we know from like Fisher Leonard, or when can we see that?
Well, let's ask him to do it at your next meeting.
Okay.
Super.
So do we want
So we'll wait?
to wait then? instead-
No,
I mean,
We gotta
No.
No, I think
gotta give them the
that
authorization
we
to
need
do it.
I mean, if we have any interest in getting this thing going,
Yeah.
it's not going to happen this year. If we wanted to get going come spring, we better get rolling. You know, I mean, really, unless everybody still thinks it's going to happen this year, but I think that's going to be pretty hard to find excavators and whatnot. Anyway, that's the
Might
one
as well
thing I
try
would
though,
say.
eh?
That's right, Dave. Let's
Any
push it.
further discussion? Okay, motion's been made. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay. So we will proceed in that direction. We will have an update at our next meeting. All right, so H, budget calendar. So on our budget calendar, you will see that Kim Dunsmore has provided the 6-month year-to-date to our department heads last week. And this week, it is our responsibility to take a look at, let me just get to the page. Oh, that's not the right page. It is our responsibility to look at priorities, set goals, and schedule meetings for the 2017 budget. So that's what we have to do. Priorities, set goals, and schedule meetings for the 2017 budget.
So I think it's a lot to imagine revisiting all those big picture items that I think you've really set in motion pretty clearly already. I think the department heads know what they need to do to present a draft budget to you for 2017. I think we know which projects we're going to be doing in 2017. So I don't really feel the need for a lot of discussion or feedback about this. I think this is really more of a, you've decided what needs to be done, and we're going to figure out what we think it's going to cost, and then we can talk about it sort of process, rather than giving department heads a directive to keep their budgets at a certain place. They always, when they prepare their budgets, are assuming that they're going to be doing the same things that they were doing before, unless we've talked about something else. So, and they're always going to be trying to do that in the most expedient way possible.
Do we have public restrooms on set for 17?
No.
That's something that we want to set.
Yeah, it's been pushed back for too long, and there's too much, it needs to be focused on.
Did CJ Fernandez design that one with Beaver Bay? Can we just offer them half whatever they paid for the design and then just get
The
them,
Onion-
put
yeah.
some out there?
Have you been in that one?
I haven't been in there.
I have.
And Beaver Bay?
Yeah.
It looks cool.
Yeah.
It's beautiful on the outside.
Not on the inside.
Is it stainless steel?
It's a concrete box with stainless steel fixtures. It looks just like any Forest Service.
Great.
camp.
Pulls it down quickly
That means it's
and
cheap.
away they
It's
go.
also
No, it was
a
really
couple
expensive.
$100,000 for 2
Stalls.
stalls.
It was really expensive.
Yeah.
It's pretty though.
Is that
They
the
got a lot of
design?
grant money and stuff like that.
Well,
We're
Yeah.
gonna get grant money.
I don't know. I
Is
think that bathrooms are just expensive, but why is that one that expensive? I just don't think there's a lot of bang for buck. It certainly isn't something that would meet the needs that we've talked about.
Sure.
So,
Just make it twice as long so you get 4 stalls.
That would solve all the problems.
I don't know.
I think there's still some innovative things we could look at to get, especially some that don't have to be up and all year long. I mean, we need a couple good permanent ones, but, you know, to kind of fill space in this super busy time, that wouldn't have to be operational.
Well, I mean,
all the time.
does anybody? Did we ever cancel the concept of a pit toilet, like completely?
No.
I mean, like just a concrete.
I just
pit
don't know
toilet?
whatever happened. Sorry to bring this up.
No, it's important.
It is.
Well, I mean, this is the time to talk about
But-
it because we're supposed to review our priorities. I do think this is a priority we need to talk about for
Well,
next year.
I feel like we talked about it, and then we talked about, like, hey, what is the deal with, like, Boulder Park? Like, who is in control of that? And I'm sure that you told us who is in control of it.
Dave Tierstig found out we could put bathrooms down there, right?
We have a lot of flexibility about that space as well as the others.
Mhm.
And anytime we want to propose something, we just need to run it past the land trust and see what sort of reaction we would get. We haven't actually gone to the land trust and said, we want to put a building this size here that has this use. At some point you have to do that, but
I thought Dave did ask them. He didn't.
he did, but it's a general question. And they want,
Specific.
at some point,
Oh,
to be
the
able to
design.
answer a specific question.
Okay.
Right,
Um,
because that will dictate their answer.
so,
You think that's a good location?
well,
Why?
I mean, it's certainly not central, right? But at the same time, if there's something that might be happening here at some time in the next several years, it seems like that out there. There is a lot of people tend to move that way, and it's kind of approachable from two different directions. And it's probably the largest. It is definitely the largest parking area on busy weekends. People park there and walk, and you can see it from Harbor Park. You can see it from Coast Guard Point. You know what I mean? It's kind of I don't know. I'm just saying, like, that seems like a super easy spot. I don't know what in the world else is going to go there right now, but it doesn't seem like we have to put whatever. We don't have to ruin that whole open space. It seems like we could do
Put it
something.
right in the middle.
We're already putting porta potties there already, so it's a known spot.
And
And we
it-
haven't talked about a big picture, but I think we need more than one spot.
Right, and that's all I mean, is it's like, that seems like a really simple, again, because it almost is like the point of a triangle, right? Of like that walk of Wisconsin out around the end of the Trading Post, up Broadway towards Artist Point. And if you, I don't know, and I don't know how that ties into like how probably doesn't tie in at all to like how we fund anything else that we're doing right now, but,
I think that was a concern, that doing the public works facility ties our hands significantly as far as funding, but we moved that direction. But then there was just a lot of unknowns with this
But-
building as well.
But
so-
that's just the thing, is like, because, I mean, that's what, we didn't start talking about the Public Works facility. The Public Works facility's been talked about for
Yeah,
how
right.
long?
Yeah.
And we didn't even know about it when we went to that first board, where everybody got to sit down and talk to all the heads of the departments. We found out about it as the new council, and it had already been talked about by previous councils. And same with bathrooms. It's just like, well, yeah, like, it does suck to like all of a sudden have to like spend and do those things, but
It's gonna happen.
inaction, right? I mean, and maybe you have to prioritize, but I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of,
Well, in my direct conversations with business owners in this community, when I was busy trying to just solicit funds for doggy pickup bags, that's when it came to my attention, because that was a big concern for them. They were appreciative of the fact that we're going to increase the doggy bags, but that's when they said, look, I'm really tired of having all of these people coming in my door, and if you're a gas station or whatever, you expect to have public restrooms, but the rest of these retailers don't. And they've done a lot of things. And once one pointed out to me, it's cheaper to put a porta potty out there than it is to let someone come in and flush my toilets
Right.
in this community.
Mhm.
So I think, considering where most of our revenue comes from and all the people who come to visit us, that's the least we could do to present something. And you can't expect little 3-year-olds nor 80-year-olds to come to one spot in this community when it's time to use a bathroom.
I mean, I
We
think
need
that's
more
what's nice,
than-
because we did a little bit of sprucing up, so here, we have a spot, right? And if we had another spot, even though it's only a few blocks away, again, it's within, we're kind of And then whatever happens with this, I don't know. I mean, we don't have to get all into the weeds on that. I'm
Right.
sorry, but I think it stinks to have that disappear, and maybe it has to because of what all this is turning into with the public works thing. But like, how long does that last? Like, how long if we do this, or are our hands really tied?
Just 20 years,
Well, we
right?
need to figure.
Are our hands tied? I
We need to
mean,
figure out how much we're willing to spend on it. I mean, if we're actually willing to spend money on it, we need to figure that out. We need to find a way to pay for it. So I mean, like it's the same thing with the $175,000 for the housing. You know, I mean, in my head, that's how it works out. If we set it as a priority, we can find a way to make it happen.
Tracy,
The question is, we just need to figure out what the plan is, because right now we don't even have a plan. You know,
Tracy, were you saying that you can't expect a 3-year-old or an 80-year-old to go to one spot, saying like, this is the one spot, so we need satellites anyways?
That's how I view it,
Mm-hmm.
dispersed around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's easy for us because in our minds we kind of know where it is. But if you've never been here
Right.
before, I don't care how small you think this town is, it's just not a practical solution.
Where's the liquor store?
Yes, exactly. And I ran outside the building. So yeah, I think, and even if some of them only have to be up for a small, like we do now, small part of the year, and we have a couple permanent, I think we can do well. I mean, it's some really neat things, like portable units that roll in that look like cute log cabins. I mean, they don't all have to be unattractive. They were cute, okay? Go look them up. They're in the UK of all places. And then there's the big ones that come in that look like a large trailer, like when you go to a summer festival event.
Yeah, I've seen
They're
those.
really nice, but then they have an outside sort of trough wash your hands
Patio?
deal. Yeah, so
you
like,
know, better than
you know,
that.
they shame anybody who walks by the hand washing unit after they exit kind of deal. Or summer inside, whatever. But there are other options we could look at that.
that's a good point. I hadn't thought about some of those other things.
I think we can do this.
I mean, are we afraid because of like the bathhouse at the park, like of like getting into that, because that, or what, you know what I mean, or is it just the priority? Like is it the?
Well, you shouldn't be afraid of it. It's just information, right? I mean, you know what it costs to build a significant restroom facility. It's not cheap. It's very expensive, especially if you're building a brand new building that's all bathroom. You know, that's the most expensive thing you can do inside of a building. Your hands are not tied. You don't have it in your budget right now.
Right.
If you want to add a $500,000 project to do a restroom facility in the downtown area, it's not in your budget, but you can add it and see what it looks like and decide whether you're comfortable with it.
But,
We don't really have a target here in terms of what the problem is that we're trying to solve. And I think it would be easier to look at some of these strategies that you've talked about if you had a goal in mind as to how many and how far and all those sorts of things. And it'd be a lot easier for us to give you some options to look at then. And I don't know how you even decide about those questions, to be honest. So, I mean, how many is enough? I don't know.
more than we have.
Well, and I think
Anything is better than what we have, which is,
Not
you know,
much.
Not much.
not much.
Well, I mean, we have a design for this space in here that's kind of like the mass flow.
But I think that fell apart, and we just threw whatever it was, a couple $1,000 at that out of the parks budget to fix that, right, or somewhere,
yeah.
to fix
More or
that
less.
up.
We still have that design, though. I mean, that design, we could do that someplace else. It just would
But
cost us
it
a bunch of
doesn't-
money.
But it doesn't,
Yeah.
there's no reason to do it somewhere
Yeah.
else, because it's only an efficient use of space to redo that space.
Was
You know what I mean, I guess, yeah.
Well, we should just put it in a line item or have a special meeting, but get it back up where it belongs. And the other reason we owe it is because it's been made very clear that that's a priority to a lot of people in this downtown area. I think we need to explore it to find out the cost, see what the options are, so they can actually know. And then they can also help decide if they think this is something we, is it worth the
Are porta potties just
porta potties?
well, right? But I mean, if I gotta go, I'm gonna use a porta potty, and I don't care. Like, is that just me being
You know,
primal, or is this
Yeah, if you were a mother with a couple
right?
kids.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Or
Yeah.
wearing it,
Yeah.
yeah.
well, I think it's absolutely it works, right? I mean, absolutely it works, but I think it's again, it's
Short
what do people, either people coming here, which is what makes our town,
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're depending on, and the businesses that are providing for those people, what are they saying? They're saying that it's a serious concern to their bottom line that people are coming in using their bathrooms, or they're having to be that guy to say, no, I'm sorry, you can't use my bathroom because you're not a customer. You know, and it just, and which, I don't know, it just puts that, honestly, like when I see a sign that says like bathroom, that's just like, I don't know, it just doesn't give you that welcoming, right? It just makes you feel like, what? Come on.
Sorry, no
What do you
public
mean?
restrooms.
You know? I don't know. So it's that, and what are we? Like, what is, right? That's why we're doing comp planning. But, I mean, we are the place that has very few people in it, except for on the summer where we have 10,000 people. And, you know, they got to go somewhere, and it's just on them. It's a burden to the business owners, I feel like, to have to deal with that. You know, I don't know. That's,
And many of them have facilities that aren't really designed for anybody but themselves, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a
They're not
closet.
really.
not
Yeah,
set
they're not
for-
really.
Water
Public
closet.
use.
So that sounds
I
like
just felt like that fell off the table.
Yeah.
It
At
did.
some point.
Way
So,
to bring it back.
I think that's
that
good.
sounds like the next priority, maybe say.
I don't know.
I think it's a priority that we can't ignore. I
Should-
mean,
should-
I do agree though. Like I think that there are other options that we haven't looked at.
Yeah.
You know, like potentially.
I can't stomach a $500,000 bathroom facility. There's no way.
No, I don't think a lot of folks in town would stomach a $500,000 bathroom
No,
facility. But
Well,
if there
I
was
think
some
that's
kind of
I think that's a really inexpensive one too.
Oh, it's not.
Well, wasn't the bathhouse 800,000 or something?
No.
like
Well,
500.
yeah, let's not go there
It was
because there's a
450.
lot more to that.
Okay.
That's gotten,
Right.
become the urban legend of
Right.
our community.
I heard it
lately.
was 3 million.
Could have built a public works facility for
Did you read
that.
that on Facebook, Dave?
I
So-
mean, if this keeps up
got
with
its own
these
page.
dollars, we'll have a public barn raising for
Well, tomorrow.
toilets.
So here's what we can do. We can look at some options. All of your guys' homework. Then, if we're going to set this as a priority for 2017 budget, did you just push him over to tell him to stay on his side?
Maybe put some
At this
tape between
corner.
us two.
Yeah.
So here's your homework. If this is going to be a 2017 priority, which it sounds like it should be, I think we all sound like we want to find a solution for this. We need to find some kind of option that works for satellite locations of toilets in our community that would be effective. So now that could be, like what you're saying, something fancier than a porta potty, but still temporary. That could be, you know, like pit toilet type things, which I honestly, the more I think about it, the more I don't think that would work terribly well. Just because they would get used a lot, and I think that they would probably.
Well, I don't know. I looked
But
up the
anyway,
ones the
yeah,
National
that's the
Forest
weeds.
does. I have all those web pages
Yeah.
saved for you.
Okay, well, maybe send them to Mike and he send them out to us, and then we can all look at it.
Well, remember
We
what they
have
do
some
at the
time.
ski hill, and that gets a lot of use
It's true, the waterless toilets up top.
up the top.
Yeah, but they got an exception from that. I don't know if we could get.
No, you just asked would they functional because of the amount of use, and I'm saying they get a lot of use and they work.
Right, and I'm saying
That's
that
what I
the state controls those waterless toilets, and
I think my wife wrote that to get that approved.
Having
So,
a big deja vu here.
so they
It's
gotta-
possible. It's doable.
It's doable, but I don't. Never mind. We're in the weeds.
Well, what I was going to
Sorry.
suggest is, do we want to have a conversation with the local downtown business owners to get them involved?
I
to
think that'd
really
be super.
share the burden of.
But-
Well,
this.
let's
I
get
mean,
ourselves together at some point, but the answer is they want the help.
Yep.
But until we have numbers and proposals and ideas, I don't think there's, not they
Well,
can't
we
do
could have.
anymore.
What kind of numbers? Are you talking budget numbers or?
Big numbers.
Costs of what it would
Okay.
be,
I
and
was
then
thinking-
it might be worth their time.
I
Right
was thinking
now,
use numbers could be valuable.
oh,
I
you
think
know,
that'd be
it's
really difficult.
Yeah,
to
that'd be hard.
collect.
they don't.
Well, I didn't say it'd be
Those
easy,
tubes that
but
they
it'd
put
be
across the
valuable.
highway.
Yeah, I
Just
don't.
put those in the.
Many
in
of
all the
them have
toilets.
already put the kibosh on this anyway, so they're not going to be able to give you the.
Oh, I see. They don't allow it, right? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
understandable.
so that we've identified that as a priority. We should continue talking about. I think that's a good place to leave that.
You want to keep talking about it now?
Are there any other?
Just kidding.
Good gravy. How sensitive is this microphone? Did it pick up all of my like muttered things under my breath?
That's okay.
That happened at 7:35. You timestamped that one. Anyway, So, are there any other priorities or goals that we want to set for 2017? Or should, I mean, I agree with Mike that there are a lot of things we've gotten started, which pretty much commits our budget for 2017. We've got a lot of things on our plate, and I think that it's responsible for us to finish those things out well before we start taking on a lot of other projects.
That's all I was throwing that out there for, because it was something that we talked about, and I just, as soon as we started looking at comp, because we also, I feel like we talked a lot about that, comp planning and the garage.
Yeah,
Well,
not,
and I just
not
want-
disagreeing with you.
And
No, so I just wanted to make sure, because we hadn't talked about it, that we've made sure to keep it, sorry.
Well, and my understanding is that Lenny's, perspective is that this building is actually in the worst shape and the kind of the highest priority from a maintenance perspective. So maybe not from.
Yeah, we're not going to do that right now, are we?
Well, I'm just saying that would be a department head's recommendation. So of a priority. So
Let's get the public works garage built, and then we can start thinking about other projects.
yeah, I was just reviews priorities. That's what we're
That's
doing.
good.
And so
Great.
I thought I should bring that up as well, since it was laid out by Lenny and.
So we are officially talking about goals.
Well, I actually thought we wouldn't, which is why nothing's prepared for that.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was
And
getting a little
it's
confused.
somewhat difficult to do that in a vacuum, where one idea seems super important, but we forget about the other 15 that we already thought were important. So I think if you really want to have a serious conversation about this, we need to revisit the big picture, and we should spend some time doing that.
Special
So
meeting?
say the word,
Special meeting? Is that the word?
because my thought was you probably don't
Already
need to
said?
review those right now, that they're pretty well established.
Well, I thought this was really valuable. I don't know that we need to go further right now.
Tonight.
Tonight.
Well, I would like to sit down and type of goals.
I think what he's saying, or if I can twist what you're saying, which I probably am going to do
Yes,
anyway,
please.
is probably that we have to have that conversation anyway. Like, we have to have that conversation where we go over the goals that are already in place, that we've already committed to, and we can add bathrooms to it. But that conversation is not going to happen tonight.
Right.
Like, tonight, this is an opportunity for us to look at what our priorities are. The bathrooms came up. I think that fulfills a lot of what this is for, is to make sure that if there's anything that's getting dropped, we can include it. But now we have to schedule meetings, right?
Yeah, so I think maybe this budget calendar is a touch misleading because we keep that idea there every time. This memo that's in your packet is a little more to the point.
Okay.
When it says, if the council wishes to set any goals regarding this budget preparation, we can schedule time for that at a later meeting.
Yeah, this is
Oh,
just
we were supposed
agenda,
to make it
right?
short, weren't we, Mike?
Well, I don't, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get that
As much
memo.
meeting as you want, but I'm not prepared to talk
It's
about
just
this
before.
tonight.
I didn't get that
And I
memo.
think
Just
it'd be
the page
useful to
before
have
the-
some
No, I don't have that
preparation.
one. No, I don't have it. Not in my packet.
I just have the
That's why I
one that
missed
says
it.
agenda.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, can
So,
we?
great. So let's,
special?
you want to do a doodle poll for set up a time for us to do the, everybody, did you get that on the recording?
The size,
Everybody's,
the group size.
well, either that or else we figure it out right now.
No.
Tim's not here.
Special
So-
meeting. Well,
Probably be on
Mike's
vacation.
not ready anyways.
Do you want to do it next meeting, or do you want to do
I can be ready next meeting.
Let's do it next meeting.
Yep. I mean, I don't, it's, nothing new is going to become right? Nothing new is going to become a priority for 17. It's basically making sure right? Because
There are
Not that it couldn't,
many
but-
other things that I would put in a similar characterization that you put the public restrooms in, which is things that have been identified as priorities, but not high enough that we've actually started working on them, and so we haven't been talking about them lately.
Okay,
Having said that,
good, but you'll
You
have
know,
that list next meeting and we can go. over it.
exactly, and
Great.
it shouldn't take long, I think, to just reestablish what we know we're working on, and then if you want to look at picking one or two other things, I mean, we're working on a lot of things behind the scenes right now that were identified as priorities, but that we don't expect to be building something soon.
Sure.
It'd be good to revisit that. I don't really feel like public restrooms was ever identified as something you wanted us to do something about. I mean, I know you've said many times, off and on, we want this to be a priority issue, but we haven't taken that next step, which is, okay, this is how we're going to respond to that.
Yeah, we never got that far.
No, I
Right.
didn't.
I think because all of a sudden it was summer and it's like, hey, well, this year. That's
even,
what I, that's
but
what
I
I
think
felt.
even last year we were in
Maybe.
the same
Well, when
position.
we
Well,
kept
we last
poking
year we
at it,
kept
but-
running into a brick wall of not actually being able to figure out what exactly we were talking about. You know, like, were we talking about one satellite? Were we talking about fixing this one up so it's really nice? I mean, but anyway, that I think that's dangerously close to the weeds. So
Yeah.
next meeting we're gonna talk about this.
Yeah.
Can you send out, or were you going to send out that list then of those before the meeting enough
Yeah.
to?
Yep.
I mean, not just with the meeting packet, but like maybe in the next few days. You know what I mean? Would that be possible?
Probably not. If you mean Thursday or Friday, probably
No.
not.
Well, okay, like,
If you mean,
Next week?
I can try to do it early next week.
yeah, not
Just
zero,
give
but
us a
just
little bit
not.
of time. You know, instead of just the Friday, right, the Friday packet delivery date,
Mm-hmm.
if it's possible.
It's possible.
Cool.
And then do we want to make sure we either, do we need to start early if we ended up with a full agenda or something?
Ginger.
Back to the UK.
Sounds like it.
Or you really don't think this will take?
Well, can we set aside an hour ahead of the meeting, just like we did today, and then if we don't need it, we don't use it?
Okay.
Does that work for everybody?
Yeah.
All right, let's do that.
Okay.
Super duper.
And in that case, we also have a chance to see what else is on the regular agenda. If there's not much, we'll just do it all at 6:30.
Great.
Yeah,
Sounds
if it looks
great.
like, but
Yep.
otherwise we won't, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
super. That worked out well.
Yeah, awesome.
Moving right along, we have this community plan grant from IRRB that they approved worth $20,000, and we need to authorize me to sign it.
I make a motion to authorize Jay to sign that form.
There's,
You gotta authorize us both, I think.
just authorize the city to
And
sign it.
Mike.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
All right, so there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second!
Okay, Tracy got
He
it.
wasn't paying attention.
Tracy got it in. Motion and a
I was
second.
being,
Any discussion concerning?
considerate.
Any concessions? Any conversation, discussion?
Thanks,
Regarding
IRRB. We'll spend it wisely.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Super duper. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Carries. Super. So I'll sign that when it's printed, and we're moving right along to our updates. So, Mr. Mills, you're up first because you now are sitting on that side.
Wow. Well, I wanted to bring the park board vacancy to everyone's attention, and I emailed Mike about that after the packets are out. So, but we need to.
Reed has actually
Phil,
submitted his written
yes.
letter
Oh,
of
okay.
resignation.
Yes,
Okay.
and so it's official now. I don't know if we need a motion to accept that. We haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. But we
No,
do
it
need
just
to
happens.
fill that position. And I have seen Barb Backlund, ooh, supposed to talk here, just on the street, and she said she was still interested, so I would suggest asking her to.
Well,
You
we
should
will,
ask her.
we'll
We have to repost
repost
it.
the advertisement, and then we'll just have it closed next Friday. Or, I mean, maybe that's too late, isn't it? Next Friday is the
Oh, for
first
the
day it's going
paper,
to be
you
able
mean?
to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I should have brought this up at the last meeting, so I apologize because
That's okay. If you've got a candidate, we should take advantage of that.
Anything
yeah, but I
else?
mean just I believe at the last meeting we had the letter of resignation.
Oh, we did? Oh, you guys did.
Yeah, the park board did, and I failed to report on that, and so that's why I'm apologizing.
Apologies.
Anyways,
Anything else?
I think that was it.
Cool.
No backs.
Anton.
That reminds me about that there is a city position open on the EDA when Mark Sambo sold his house. And he left the EDA, so there is a city position. And there was one person that called me, and this has been, I don't know how long it's been in effect, at least probably 2 months now.
And there was at least 2 people that I heard were interested, and I think we handed out at least 3 applicants.
And we don't have anybody.
But I haven't seen any applications.
So it would be really fantastic if we had somebody, and Yeah, anybody really, because it's been a positive experience. I think I didn't know what I was going to get into, and I got onto that, and
It's like the one thing you wanted to do.
yeah, and it's well, you're right, and I didn't know what it was going to be like, and it's
Oh,
been.
touche.
I mean, it's been like moving along, chugging along on stuff. So, and I appreciate the council working, with the EDA and the county. I thought that was a really positive meeting yesterday. I'm moving that project forward with the housing. Sold another business park lot, which I think I talked about last time, but that we just had the hearing last night about that, and that went through. I think closing is coming soon. And I think there's probably going to be 3 groundbreakings up there yet this year on properties that have sold in the past. Oh, I missed, I guess, an opportunity to talk about that form that you sent about the business park sales and that running account thing. I won't talk about that now, but I kind of got that, but I didn't get it. The one question I was going to ask you about, or ask them about, if this is okay time to do it, was just that, what was that thing about the county not making payments in 13? Is that true? The county didn't make payments, or why was that?
I think you'd need to ask them, and I don't know if these people today would even know the answer.
Yeah.
We didn't have a contract with the county.
When was
So-
that signed? 14?
15 maybe even?
Yeah, we did it.
It was
We did?
recently.
Yeah, we did it, right?
And, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was one of the.
Oh, yeah.
And, but there were payments from the county previous to
Yeah.
13
Yeah.
because we had sat down and come to an understanding about things.
Oh.
I guess it just didn't.
Okay. That's all. It just was like, wait, because it was kind of the way it was worded. It's like, wait, was it later, or just think it
I don't know that.
happened?
I don't know that there's a good explanation for why they didn't make a payment that year to us. All I know is that we were hoping to get it and we didn't. And
Do you know what
we
that
didn't.
amount would have been?
It would have been 60,000. So
Just for that 1 year?
yeah,
Oh.
we levied for half the bond payment and
Yeah.
made the whole bond payment.
I mean, I think that's the one thing that, and I'm glad that we passed this tonight to keep that process moving forward. But I really do think if you look at the overall levy and budget amounts that the city has versus the county, I mean, and even, well, I just think that, I think that it's beyond, I think it's generous of the city to step in at even the 1/3, 2/3 level. In my personal, but I don't know if you do get any action out of the county,
Well,
unless you're using the EDA kind of as the vehicle, because that's funded via, right,
A property tax levy on everybody in the
everybody in
county.
the county. Anyway, so, Anna just got this, apparently I missed a Arrowhead Regional Development Council board meeting again, so that's all I got.
Tracy?
Maybe not to keep that going too much further, but we did have part of our discussion yesterday was to think of this as, the whole county, this project,
Yeah.
and not to get locked into the physical locations, and maybe that's part of what's happening with us here in part of it too, and we don't need to as much. Maybe just something to think about, when it comes time to divvying out these costs. Somehow it feels like it's become, because part of it's located here in the city, that then somehow we're supposed to, but if you take that logic of this is a county-wide project and we're not getting locked into
Right.
a small location, that maybe kind of removes that thought a little bit, depending on how you initially approach it. I had no other special meetings. As usual, just wondering how any thoughts or movements and big picture thoughts around a new city hall, and any movement or thoughts or progress on the liquor store development. And then now that things are actually being broadcast, where are people seeing them, since our website isn't quite as cool as the county's? Is it just straight to YouTube?
On our website.
It is right
It's on our
embedded in.
website, yeah.
Okay, just wondering.
Thanks,
People ask
Patrick.
me. And I can tell them where to go. Click.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
It'll be right there on the cover page. You'll see it.
Sweet.
I don't know if it's mobile friendly yet. Maybe. Yeah.
Sure.
I had something Another question actually too, and just that the gravel that was on Creechville got cleaned up really fast after we talked about that. I was just wondering about the road itself, if there was any assessment, evaluation of it, or a talk with the county or ownership or that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think he wants another assessment.
He wants another special.
That was the wrong word. I mean, it could have. I chose a different word.
Yeah, we looked at it right away. I contacted Jeff at the county and let him know, one, that there were some maintenance needs in the culvert. It's the culvert that crosses the Gunflint Trail's plugged, and that's the reason why the damage was occurring. And I also said we need to sort out the long-term responsibility issues on above and below the Gunflint Trail on this road. So that conversation has started.
It's a county.
I think also the highway department, the county administrator, myself, and probably soil and water will all be talking, and Lenny will continue to talk about ideas for ways to improve the stormwater on that.
Well, I think you're right, and yes, it seems like it's plugged. I think that there are problems above that though that are unrelated to the plugging. I
Right.
think that caused the plugging. So just so that's
Yeah, I mean, what causes it is
set.
not ever maintaining it.
Sure.
too.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, ready?
Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Look at this, he's got a lot of notes.
I've got
That's
notes,
on
but they
your
won't
stuff.
take a terrible long time. So, one question for the council: Do you guys have any feelings about creating a handicapped parking space in front of, or the curb cut where Kennedy's business, or where his empty lot used to be? Because that right now it's a curb cut there. It's not designated as anything other than a non-parking spot, but it's not a throughway anymore. So I'm wondering if there's any limitations we have on doing that, or if that's something that we can do as is. I mean, it would give us a couple more parking spaces, a couple more handicap parking spaces downtown, which I think is a good deal.
One, probably? Or
I think you
could
could
we
probably
get
fit two there.
I think you could probably fit two.
Yeah,
Okay.
because the
Oh, yeah.
the
it
curb is
extends.
painted out like 4 feet or 3
Yep.
feet on either side. So I
Yep.
think you could get two handicap spots there, and that would be pretty easy to do. Just paint it blue and put a couple signs up, and you'd be.
Have you heard from Tim about this idea?
I
don't
have
remember what he said.
not heard from Tim about this idea, but
As long as we don't paint an arrow guiding people through his property to the bathrooms, I think.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
that
not
was
a,
where I- that
it's
was
not
when
a
I-
through.
that was when I pissed him off.
Is maybe an assumption that ought to be tested by talking to the property owner, just to understand
Well,
their
let's-
intentions.
Let's talk to the property owner,
Yeah, maybe next meeting,
or before next
since he'll be
meeting.
here.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to keep that up because people keep asking me if that's happening, because they sure would like to have more parking spaces if it's possible. So that's that.
You mean handicapped or just parking in general?
All of the above.
And we can't make it just general parking?
We could, but it's got a curb cut, so I don't see why we wouldn't make it handicap parking, because we don't have hardly any handicap parking downtown.
Okay, just wanted
It's
to
not
check your logic on it.
Technically accessible, even with the curb cut.
Oh, yeah?
And if we had two parallel spots, a handicap accessible, you need to have some sort of safe place to
Unload.
exit. And if they have a ramp, it doesn't need to be a curb cut.
Mhm.
And if they don't, then it doesn't matter. You have to get around to it anyway. It's still a decent idea, just, it doesn't have to meet any standards. We can paint it blue and make it handicap anyway. But it could also be just standard parking.
Okay, so
Got
we'll
it.
follow that up next meeting. I got this message. I don't know if you guys got this message from Philip Musig from MPCA, Minnesota Pollution Control. There's a thing called Resilient Communities Project, and this is what it is. I'll just read the description. So this facilitates a year-long partnerships between the University of Minnesota and one selected community in Minnesota. Through the partnership, students and faculty from across the university collaborate with the partner community to address its self-defined sustainability-related needs through course-based projects. So it's basically like using a community to assist in the education of students through the University of Minnesota with actual projects that will impact and positively impact communities. So right now they're calling for applications for this. The question that I have about this is A, are you interested, and B, is there a project or projects that we could use their assistance with? The one project that came to my mind right away was stormwater.
So what does it depend on what the needs of the programs would be, which would define what types of, like, the students that would come, right? I mean, it's like if they're hydrology majors, right, would come up and deal with stormwater stuff versus maybe urban planning. I don't know if that's even a major, but you know what I mean, like more like
Can be.
sociology type stuff. I don't know. That's why I guess what I'm wondering.
Well, it says that
Or is it just like
assistance is
undergrads or-
available related to all aspects of sustainability, e.g. environmental health, economic opportunities, social equity, and community livability, and all stages of sustainability efforts, analysis, planning, design, implementation, and evaluation. So that seems pretty broad. I feel like they, if we put forward a project saying, hey, we want the University of Minnesota to come up and design our stormwater program, or design adequate stormwater for Grand Marais so that we can, not be dumping water straight from our streets into Lake Superior, and then they come down and they design something that, that works for us, and we want it to be cheap. Then that would be great, but it also is something that, like, do we have the capacity to do this?
So are they like engineering students? Because otherwise, I mean, right? I mean, I guess that's all.
Yeah, I
I
see
wonder,
what you're
like,
saying.
I mean, because that would be fun, but I just want to make sure it's like useful, right? Or is that mean? I mean,
that's the whole
because
point.
you know what I mean.
If
Like,
they say they can do design,
sure, right?
And
Yeah. I mean,
take them at their word.
in some ways, like even with the comp planning, to have them involved in that aspect and some of the stuff that might be spin-offs of that, or manning who's going to man these stations that we have out.
I don't think that's the direction they're going. I think what they're doing is actually doing the the problem solving part of a project.
Like
Instead of like,
hands-on.
yeah, instead of the just like going out and doing the footwork like that.
yeah, I think
So-
downtown
Do you have multiple
stormwater
projects, or is it
is
just a word
They
you
do
want?
10 to 30
Yeah,
projects,
easily defined.
10 to 30 projects, local projects during the partnership year.
So there's a good
So-
chance then, with that big of a range.
Well, we can take a look at it. Why don't I take a look at it and we can get
Can you
back
just send
to.
us the link,
I can send it to.
Mikey?
But
Mikey
just you and
sends
I
out
got it,
everything.
right?
What?
Just you and I got it.
Really? Here, let me forward it to Mike, and then he can send it out.
So it would sound like with 10 to 30 projects, then maybe they do have students in different specialties available depending on the project.
Yeah, from architecture, planning, engineering, environmental sciences,
Cool.
There you
public
go.
health,
That's what I was looking for.
humanities.
Awesome.
He must have read it a little bit closer than I did.
It's all right, Jane. You're doing a good job.
I was distracted
use that.
because
They could come in here and teach us how to have effective meetings.
Ouch.
speaking of which, I just got distracted because I received a message on my phone from Sarah Hamilton who said she's watching us.
Outstanding.
It was super creepy because it just said, "I'm watching you," and then had a smiley face. So,
Oh, that's less creepy.
hi Sarah. So at least one person is watching our meeting, and she'll know in 25 seconds.
Is that
Oh,
a
7 people are
delay?
watching it? Woo. Thank you to 7 people watching our meeting. All right, so let's
Just
keep moving.
close family
Can we
members
have
and
closing
friends?
music with it, Patrick? Did we?
Oh, good.
Okay,
Oh, what
so,
else did you have?
Okay, so PUC, a couple of PUC commissioners are interested in pursuing a concept of having a solar wall on the Public Works garage. I don't know if you've heard about these things. They're basically like solar heaters for large spaces. And warehouses, they've been put on warehouses, and they work really well, and they work well in northern latitudes too. Now, I sent the specs on that to Mike, who said that he sent them to the architect to see how much it would cost. above the project cost that we have thus far to put something like this on, because it's going to be more than what we were expecting. But what we could be talking about for a trade-off is we could be talking about a pretty significant trade-off in heating expense
And tax credits?
for the space.
Do we get tax
We don't
credits?
get tax credits. We
Come on.
are the tax.
Don't we get grant money for that? Like, isn't there like
Well, it's
U.S.
possible.
Department of Energy we
Well,
can get?
what I
possible.
saw
Oh,
was
like
not tax credits, was rebates.
Right.
And that sometimes means tax credits.
tax credits, rebates, whatever.
Sometimes it means rebates, like they'll give you money.
You
Sure.
bet.
I don't know.
Well, anything with their utilities for that?
Well, it
No.
doesn't
No,
cost
okay.
us as much to heat our own buildings.
Oh, sure.
And
No, I
that's
meant
the
where they
difference.
had any incentives
Yeah,
to.
we weren't intending to use electric heat, so, you know.
I
Oh,
suppose we're
yeah.
going to burn gas. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So that's something that just to keep on your radar, that when the architect gets back to us about that, well, there'll be some information about some potential alternative heating options for that humongous space that we're building, which I think could be pretty cool. But it also might be stupid expensive and then not make much sense. So we'll have to see. I think we're building a long-term building.
Mhm.
We're building a building that we want to be around for a long time. Let's make it as cheap as possible to operate if possible.
Pretty sure gas is only going to get more expensive.
I've heard that.
Yeah. I don't know where I heard. I read that somewhere.
I read that somewhere. That it just they're not making it anymore.
It was
That's
Facebook. There was a Facebook
The
page.
Facebook thing. Yeah, yeah. We should get all of our information from Facebook. So moving right along, I made a proclamation on July 19th, just so you all know. It was a proclamation for the Playhouse, the Grand Marais Playhouse, which is celebrating their 45th season this year. So I made July and August go to the theater months. So hopefully all of you will go to the theater shows and support the Playhouse. And you 7 people who are watching too. That's called pandering to the camera. Anyway,
You
so
did
that's
it
my
well.
proclamation. The
And Mike, you were great.
Hey, thanks.
You
Oh,
really
I have to
enjoyed
go and
the
see it.
play on Friday. Or the musical.
There it is. So I got another email from, here it is, from Soil and Water, from the Clean Water Fund, and that is a fund that gives grants monies to organizations that are doing studies on how they can improve their stormwater. And I talk about this a lot. A lot of the reason I talk about this is because there's a lot of stuff going on with that parking lot, and I want to see what we can do to figure out that parking lot so that it's not a problem anymore. So it's possible that we could apply for monies through the Clean Water Fund to fix something over there, but we can't use this money, from what I understand, to do the studies to figure out how to fix it.
Just once you're ready to fix it.
Kind of.
we can
I think that's kind of the situation.
cost.
So I don't actually even know when the dates are, like when the application deadline is.
Are those ongoing?
I think they might be ongoing,
Yeah.
but I can look into it more. But okay, what is? Oh, it's tons of information. But working with Soil and Water, I think we'd have a better chance of getting something like that.
And they've identified that project as potentially one of their high priorities for their work plan as well. So.
Great.
Cool.
Yeah. So then we could have some cooperation there. So I might bring that up later. I'll do some more research on it and make sure that it's something that we can, if we can even apply for it, because sometimes that happens, that we can't apply for things like that. Library Board had a special meeting and approved their own, their budget. That was before they gave it to us. And we had a meeting, let's see if I can find that. At the meeting, they were talking about all of the programs that are happening through the summer. Summer's going really well at the library. There's some building issues, like some water draining off the roof that they want to divert so that it doesn't come pouring off right where the staff have to enter and exit. And they've got the fall programming already. They've got it all figured out for the fall. So So that's the library board update. I was down in the Twin Cities on the 19th as well for NPR's Policy and a Pint. That was pretty fun.
Do I owe you $5?
You don't owe me $5. I didn't get Subway in or get party subs in, which is a bummer. But
So easy.
it would have been so easy. I totally spaced it out. But that was a lot of fun. It was really interesting. They're going to have it as a podcast, so you can watch it. And the last thing that I have on my list is actually has to do with public restrooms, which is really interesting that you guys brought that up. So I got a message from Sarah Hamilton, who's watching us.
Weird.
Actually, she sent me a message too that said that was weird when I gave her a shout out. Anyway.
Do you think she'll say it's weird again?
Probably.
Innovated herself.
This is like totally getting to quantum leap here.
What a great show.
So anyway, Sarah, and a couple of other ladies up the trail or around town too, looked at the space and came up with an estimate for having it redone so that it's nice.
What
Just
space?
like to do the footwork,
What
just
space?
doing for the public restrooms over here. The existing public restrooms.
Gotcha.
And so the estimate that she came up has 1010 Interiors being engaged as the person to do the work, and provide the materials. And I think that the estimate was somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 grand, or 12. Is it 12? 450 or something like that.
These right through here. That's weird. I pointed over
Far
there.
side of the
Oh,
building.
The far side
Okay.
of the building.
Yep.
Yeah. And so the reason she did that is because there's needs to be some motion on this. There's a lot of people downtown talking about this, as Tracy pointed out. And if we can make those bathrooms more usable, more people will use them. So that's the concept. You have that bid or the proposal that she dropped off, so we can get that to you guys as well, just to consider. You think about $12,000 for having the bathrooms completely redone. It might not be a bad idea. It's something that we need to think about and think about it in the greater scheme of what we're working on for bathrooms. So
Well,
is it going to improve?
Last year we approved $5,000 to.
Right, but that was also like for our guys to do it instead of like this time we'd be hiring somebody else to do it, and then it would be whoosh, like done.
Yeah, but I thought we
So-
went even one farther back with more major repairs and then found out they were not workable and feasible.
With the space. Yeah,
Right,
that's true.
and because of the way the plumbing and the structure, it's not the cosmetic
That's true.
part that really mattered here, was the underneath, and that's what made us go to the low budget deal, and are they aware of that? And so before much more time gets taken, somebody needs to go back and look at the whole reason why we never hardly spent the money we
Yeah.
did,
Yeah.
which was because of the way the actual
That's
fixtures
true.
and plumbing work.
I guess I forgot.
And
about
then
that.
how much more time and effort are we going to spend on something we really need to move forward on a big picture with?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we can use that as part of the impetus to move in that direction.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for Sarah, but I don't think she'll be insulted if we don't go with the bid
No.
that she proposed, as long as we make some action on this.
Oh, yeah.
So that we do that. So, not to beat a dead horse, but that I think we've talked about that a lot tonight. So, and we've made it pretty clear that it's a priority. So, that's all I have. Anything? Closing comments? Snide remarks?
We're doing well. It's only 8:10.
And this meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, Chris.